I'm not sure if you guys have noticed this, but it feels like the larger YouTube channels, at least the ones that I follow, aren't really doing all that great. In fact, I'm seeing more and more small channels that are flooding into YouTube because the larger channels, I'm not sure what's going on with the larger channels. I have all of these channels that I follow, and no one's really posted anything in a long time. So last night and the night before, I was just sitting here looking at an empty feed. But if you go into your recommended videos, if you go up here and you go to home, it recommends all these strange small YouTubers. And I'm not exactly certain why it does that, but it has been doing that as of late. So I'm wondering if there's just an overall decline in sales, but some of these small channels are making at least $5,000 a month. Because if my small channel is making around half that, then that means that slightly larger channels are doubling or tripling because my channel has around 3,000 subscribers right now. I'm getting about 15,000 views a night, which is five times what my subs are, and I'm just kind of wondering what happened to the larger channels. Did people finally just get fed up of just watching the same things over and over again? How many times can you watch a Mr. Beast video and him do the exact same thing? And I think that's what it comes down to. I mean, you guys tell me all the time that I'm repetitive, but who isn't repetitive in this world? If you open up CNN right now, let's see, like normally on an average day, my morning starts with CNN. And what's going on CNN? No one cares, right? No one cares about anything that's going on CNN. Let's see what Fox News has on the cover. Who cares? Biden's out. And what's, ooh, yikes. It looks like some sort of wreck in Alaska. And there's ice and there's fluid. But aside from that, there's nothing really to watch on YouTube. I find myself scrolling endlessly at night, looking at stupid videos. At some point last night, I ended up on this video of some chick that was mildly attractive. She was in the gym, and the photographer was professional, right? He was taking some pretty cinematic shots of her, but the whole time she didn't know what the machines were called. She didn't know what she was really doing. She wasn't capable of doing the particular exercise that she was showing because she didn't know how to do it. And it was really strange. It's like, what are these people doing? Then I ran into another fitness influencer. She was really jacked, but you could tell that she had no idea what she was doing. And what that reminded me of is that you can keep going to the gym and not really know what you're doing and still develop some musculature because it's not that hard. Everything is about a push or a pull. Anyhow, that was just my take on last night because I was really bored and I made that video that I posted, like I said, but I couldn't do anything with it from I think 3 o'clock in the afternoon. No, it was actually 2 o'clock in the afternoon because I left to go to the gym at 2, and I kept hitting refresh on ChatGPT, and it just was down. The servers were down for like 6 hours. So I got home. I tried to put some footage in there from years ago. That's how long it's been. That's why I'm making this video because the loneliness epidemic is a huge part of American society now. More and more Americans are reporting that they don't have a single friend. And that would be me. In the course of 2 days, I managed to completely eliminate what was left of the people that I talk to on a regular basis. Um, whatchamacallit, the gym girl, the attendant that swipes the gym cards. Well, she doesn't really have a job anymore. I talked to her in the morning yesterday, and then I talked to her manager in the afternoon. She was trying to see if she could get her any work at different gyms, but more than likely she was going to be let go because the gym corporation, has shrunk, and the reason for that is the main topic of this video is People aren't going outside. And I was watching this guy uh, who's the person that triggered this me making this video, and his name was like Travis Watson or something. Dude, no shirt on YouTube with 20,000 subscribers, and I'm like, all that dude had to do is take his shirt off. He's scrawny as hell. He's got some really bad tattoos, and this dude's got 20,000 subscribers and is making some serious bank. And he goes on to talk about this. It looks like he's on some sort of reservation in the background. It doesn't look like a modern city in the back. It doesn't look like Phoenix. It looks like some town up in the Four Corners area. But he goes on to say that community centers, basketball courts, gyms, all the places where people used to gather, even the malls. You never thought that the mall would ever succumb to the fact that people don't want to go outside. People want to shop inside their homes. And so I don't think this was triggered by the bug from a few years ago. I think people were already starting to go towards that way. Curbside pickup for groceries, Amazon for everything else. And we just don't talk to each other anymore. Yesterday, when I was at the gym between 2 and 3, there was hardly anyone there. And I know it's not prime time, but it's the gym. Like, I'm going to be at the gym in about an hour after I'm done making this video, so I should be there at 8. But I was there yesterday, and I did that short. I had a really awkward experience with that mom with a bunch of kids that has been working out there for years. And I mean, this lady works out intensely. I mean, she's on the elliptical for half an hour, she's on the stair climber, she's on the treadmill, and then she goes and she does weights and she does like a bunch of different ab stuff. And she does it all in the same order. Like yesterday when I got there, a little bit after 9 o'clock, I'm gonna say. No, right before. I got there at 8:50. And she was already, on her third cardio machine. And so when I came out to do both an upper and lower body day, I was sitting there on the hip thrust machine, on the Smith machine, doing hip thrusts, and she was looking over at me from the she was doing the trunk turn machine, the oblique machine. And it was really odd because there was no one else there. It's not like at one point she was staring at me, and then because from where I was sitting to her, my vision perfectly lined up with the row of machines as you walk towards the gym, right? It's the main corridor to the gym. So I'm just sitting there waiting for, to rest between sets, because it's one of the few machines where I actually have to rest between sets because I go really heavy. I do 350, I think, on that machine. And so I'm sitting there and she's looking at me, and then for some reason she stops looking at me, and then she turns around to look behind her as if I were looking at someone behind her, but there's no one else there. So while I was doing research for this video, I did a script, right? And the script just sounded too generic. So I created talking points, and there wasn't much in the way of talking points. I mean, this is one of them right here. Empty basketball courts, unused community centers, and the disappearance of group hangouts highlight a culture shift away from in-person connections. Well, in-person connections means that you have to go outside. Also, in-person connections mean even going out to lunch or coffee is going to cost you $20. Well, in a world in which most people don't have any money, that $20 that you were going to use to go out to coffee with someone, you could use it to stock up more ramen that you're going to need for the winter, because most of us don't know how much longer we have at any job. I mean, I was watching a YouTuber last night, and she was Armenian, very strange looking features, right? Facial features. And she was talking about this very same thing, is how lonely her life is. She did a lot of editing on that video, like a ton of editing, and you look at the views and they're not there. She spends hours and hours editing and getting footage, recording what she eats and where she goes, and her horrible taste in clothing. And a lot of it had the clothing she bought was from Goodwill, and the video was really trying to capture an audience, but I think it was just trying too hard. But expressing throughout the entire video one thing is that she's very alone in her world. And I think that most of us can relate to that because we have seen a shift, a monumental shift. Even a person like myself, that for the first while of the pandemic, I didn't realize what the big deal was because I spent so much of my life alone anyway. But then you start like evaluating your life and you look at the few people that you talk to, and then you think to yourself, wow, my phone hasn't rang in a long time. And the people that do ring through, you just hit block on because you don't want to talk to them. It's a point that I made in my last video that I made last night. It's like, the people that do contact you, they're a waste of human skin. And so now you're stuck between being alone or being in an unpleasant group of people. And the person that I ended up blocking the other night had told me for years now that her friend group was toxic and her friends were very trashy. And she didn't like trashy people. And I'm like, you know what? You're trashy people. You're the kind of person who goes to the gym and then hooks up in the parking lot. It doesn't get much more trashy than that. But you can convince yourself of anything. You can convince yourself that you're not lonely. I've somehow, for 20 years, I managed to convince myself that this was normal. Not talking to anyone for extended periods of time, I convinced myself was normal. I go to work and I have very little interaction. My interactions with Gen Z are basically telling him to do his work and his finding ways of not doing his work. And you're just kind of like, this is it. There's no one at my job that was there when I got hired anymore. I think the last lady that they fired was the last person that I'm for certain was there 3 years ago. Everyone else is gone. And you wonder, it's like, okay, well, let's see. Let's look around at who's left. In the technology department, we've lost more than half the people that were there. The other half are on their way out. I think at least three of them have been spoken to have HR's reached out to them for behavioral problems. They fired that one guy about 5 weeks ago without warning of any kind, but I think the reason he got fired is they caught him. He was a 100% remote worker. I think they caught him enough times pretending to work, being logged in, but not actually working, so that they had enough evidence to show that he needed to be terminated. And then I look at everyone else. The guy from the state next to me, he's over 55. He's getting paid less than $20 an hour. So obviously he's looking for something else. The guy that lives on the west side of me, he's been reprimanded now through HR 3 times. So I think he only has one left before it's an automatic termination. The guys around me and both northern and southern, they have absolutely no motivation to be at work. The guy south of me, right before the holidays, his mother ended it all. And I remember talking to him because he wasn't at work for a few days, and having a parent that does that right before the holidays, and again, loneliness, people. The holidays are extremely hard on people. So when I talked to him, I remember exactly where I was, and I'll probably remember this for the rest of my life. I just pulled into the parking lot at Chiba Hut, and I get that phone call from him, and he's like, "Hey, Millennial Steam, sorry I haven't been at work in a few days, but my mom, she's not here anymore." And it's really, really odd about that is that when something like that happens, it's not just they throw you into the meat bucket and then they move on. They have to do a full blown investigation that can take weeks. So, yeah, that was kind of a strange start to the holiday season. And then everything else, that's work. And then everything else around me has just been the usual. From last year to this year, I probably have even less people that I talk to this year, mainly because they've all moved away. In fact, the person that I ended up blocking was planning on moving in 2 weeks back home to the East Coast anyway. So, I was never going to see her again anyway, so there's no point in holding on. If you're not going to see a person that lives 5 minutes from your house, What chance do you have at seeing them once they move 6 hour plane ride back to the East Coast? That's it. It's over. You don't make the effort to stay in contact. You don't make the effort to see people. You don't make the effort to talk to them. Then, of course, eventually they're just going to get tired of you. And people react differently to the being thrown away, right? Because some people are like, well, I'm busy, with my significant other, or I'm busy with my friends, or I'm busy with my family, or I'm busy with all three. Well, guess what? You just get tired of hearing that, and you just put them in the dumpster and you walk away. That's what we do. So, I wanted to share this particular stat that came up while I was watching that shirtless guy's video. Nearly 12% of Americans report having no close friends, while the average person spends only 4 hours a week doing anything social. 4 hours a week out of 168 hours you spend doing anything social. That is an incredibly low statistic, almost to the point where you would call it a national crisis of loneliness. 4 hours a week is how much time I probably spend having the Hershey squirts on the toilet. It's not any amount of time. And if that's all Americans have right now because they're working a full time job, they're working a gig job, and they're working a part time job on weekends, they're working nights, and guess what? They're still broke. That's the worst part, is that no matter how much you work, it's not enough. And then on top of that, you have no friends and nothing to do when you do have time off, because most of the time that you have time off, that other person's probably working the evening, or they have to get up really early, so which means that you never see them and you never talk to them. And then sometimes they'll message you out of the blue and you're like, what is this? Like, that's what happened to me the other night on Christmas Day. I got a text message the night before. It's like, hey, can you hang out? And then the next morning at 7 o'clock, it's like, oh, by the way, I'm going to be hanging out with my friends, aka boyfriend or significant other. When you don't want to admit something, you always make excuses. It's like the same reason why when anyone that I actually know in real life, actually, let's just move that to all people. When people ask me what I do for a living, it's a lot easier for me to tell them I'm unemployed. It's just easier that way. It's not like I'm fooling myself that this is some great job that's going to go someplace. It's much easier to say, this is how I feel about work. I'm unemployed. Because for most of us, our jobs don't matter to us. I mean, you can work this job until, for 1,000 years and you'll never get ahead because it's the world we live in. On top of not having any work, no social connections, no no aspirations in life. That's what I've noticed about our current society. Ambition is now gone because you know what's also gone? The pink taco. And again, I'm going to mention I spend a lot of time at the gym, and this is the main place where I observe people. People aren't talking to one another. Even the semi attractive women can walk into a gym, at least my gym, spend an hour there, and not a single person will approach them. And as a person who's met every person that I've ever gotten it on with at the gym, because you know, fitness people like fitness people. Very rarely you're going to find a fitness person that doesn't like other fitness people. I mean, even at night, I watch fitness influencer videos when I'm bored. It's what we do. It's, it's who we are when it comes right down to it. Fitness people, they're a different kind of people. They're the kind of people that are going to understand that you're watching your diet, you're watching your carbs, you're watching your workouts, you're training muscles differently. You watch training, you are training in a sense. When you want to look like this, you're constantly training. And it just doesn't happen unless well, I mean, there's a couple of women that I see work out a lot. There's a couple of moms that I see that work out for at least an hour to 2 hours every single day. And you would pass them on the street and think, oh my gosh, this person needs to work out. And what it comes down to people like that is that they just don't watch what they eat. They go home and they just devour everything in sight, which means that you can't offset 2 to 3,000 calories of pure junk. If you're getting home and eating a bag of nachos every night, and on top of that, you're having full meals and snacks, and oh my gosh, this that girl that I was watching last night, doing a day in the life of, she ate nonstop in that video. You're like, oh my god, I'm surprised you're not like 300 pounds because there are people who can't control their eating. I offset my extra calories by making certain that I get at least an hour of cardio every single day. And I know it doesn't, work its way. It's not perfect, the perfect solution, but at least I'm trying. I'm doing the extra activity necessary to uh, offset my bad behavior. Because again, what does it come down to? Why do people drink? Loneliness, despair, sadness, poverty, escapism. That's why we drink. So the last thing I wanted to mention is this talking point, which I'm just going to throw out there because it's on my screen. Factors like social media, longer work hours, and individualism have contributed to this loneliness epidemic. I think that individualism shouldn't be in here. I think that most of us are doing what we can while we're in survival mode. And since we've been in survival mode for 10, 20 years now, individualism is hard to blame for the fact that our paychecks don't go anywhere. I think it's a broader societal problem that we just don't have any, but we don't want to put forth any energy towards socializing anymore because we don't get anything out of it. How many times have we tried to hang out with someone and thought, this might go somewhere, and then you realize it, days and months, it's years that you waste in your life being around people that will never amount to anything. And by amount to anything, I'm not really certain what that means. It's other than someday you're going to look back at the time that you wasted the past 3 years, the time and the effort and the resources that you put in, and then you open up your wallet and you realize that it was completely empty. There was no investment on their part whatsoever. And with that said, I am done my rambling of the day. I am going to now get ready to go to the gym, and I will talk to you guys in the next video, which should be coming before noon today, as soon as I get back from the gym and do my chores.